later. So thank you for coming to the census office hours. Just a couple of reminders. The census is due Monday, February 14th, which is Valentine's Day. That's our Valentine's Day present to Reuben. The SONA resources page, which I've entered into the chat, has the 2021 guidance and definitions document, the 2021 training video, and then I'll upload this video in there as well. We will have a second office hours on Friday, February 11th at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that is the last working day before the census is due. So if you have some last minute questions, join us for those office hours. Additionally, if you are in SONA Share, that means you're on the SOI server and you have access to send a message to Reuben or myself in Microsoft Teams. So if you're going through your census and you're kind of stuck on a point, feel free to just send us a message and then we can connect. You can share your screen and get almost an immediate response versus waiting, although Reuben is always really good about responding to emails quickly, especially this time of year. But wanted to make sure that you knew that that was an option as well.
And if I may add on to that, if you're into an area that you have an error and you can't figure out what's causing that error, don't spend more than 10 minutes trying to figure it out. Reach out to me, and the very least we can do a screen share. I can look at it and see, oh, this is why that error is popping up. And the second biggest item that happens is they do not go into the expanded view. If you just look at it on the normal view, say you're in the total athletes and coaches, and you'll see an error. And when I was talking about this morning, oh, this program said they had for a certain sport, 30 coaches for M3A and 60 coaches for under M3, but it was flagging as M3A was greater than M3. But if you go to the expanded view, you will see that it was caused by either male or female being more than the male or female under M3. So remember that expanded view, and that's the two double arrows above the download by the data set name.
All right, so this is your time. If you want to unmute, feel free to unmute. You can ask questions, but this is really a time for you guys. So no silly questions. Go ahead and ask away.
Hi, Kelly and Reuben. It's Lisa with Special Olympics Montana. I have one question for you. Can you distinguish on the program information sheet the number of athlete leaders? What's the difference between that and the number of unpaid staff with intellectual disabilities? Because I guess I'm looking, our athlete leaders and unpaid staff with intellectual disabilities could be like our health messengers and some other programs that we have going on. I've always put for number 8, number of unpaid staff 0, but I'm thinking I'm wrong.
I'll tackle that one first. So the athlete leaders, a leadership role can be anything. They could be a coach, they can be an official, they can be ALPS, they can be doing anything in a leadership role. So if you're looking at unpaid staff, it's kind of looking at people that are coming into the office, volunteering to do office work, helping out on not a really schedule, oh, they're coming in every Monday, but on a regular time to help in the office. So they're really unpaid staff. So they're doing a staff position, whether it's mailings, things like that. So that's kind of the distinction. The athlete leaders is anybody that's in a leadership role, and the unpaid staff could be athletes that come in and help you with mailings, but they are coming in on a regular time, whether it's once a week, once a month, once a quarter, but they are coming in and doing the work of somebody on the staff.
Okay, well, I guess I am right then. I'll keep that at 0. So, okay, thank you.
That's a great question.
Hi there. This is Emily with Special Olympics Alaska. Thank you guys for doing this today. I just had a question. I'm pulling up my notes here with virtual engagement. So, for example, we offered a number of virtual basketball clinics where athletes just kind of tuned in. They didn't really train for it. They tuned in like 3 times out throughout the year. So of course, we counted those as virtual engagement, but should we also be counting those as unified recreation for basketball? Or if they're in recreation, or sorry, virtual engagement, they're just listed one time throughout the census?
Probably the easiest way to define that is if you're doing a sport specific type of virtual engagement, put it under that sport. But if it's a all encompassing, I was seeing a couple of them, they were doing virtual bingo. So that would be a virtual engagement. So kind of the rule of thumb is if it's a sport specific, put it under the sport, and you can put a comment by that sport when you're doing your submit. You can make a comment that this was a virtual basketball competition or virtual bowling, but it's just, we want to try to do that, and we put the virtual engagement as kind of a catch-all.
Okay, and I'll ask another question, which I think you just kind of answered. We offered a dry land training. It was a 8-week long, once a week thing. Athletes logged on to Zoom. We did a workout. So instead of counting that as virtual engagement, it might be more appropriate to count that as fitness.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it was the 6
Wonderful.
weeks then.
Yes. Yep. So we'll count them in both of those areas, under fitness and then under the program info.
Yep.
I
Perfect.
appreciate that. I don't like the answer because I got to go back and redo my work, Reuben, but I appreciate. But I appreciate
those are easy changes.
No, it is. It is. Thank you so much.
Hey, this is Mike from Maryland. As a follow-up question to that, let me kill that. If we have folks that were involved with the various fitness activities, so they weren't sessions, they were doing stuff on their own, should we also include that as fitness or as virtual or what? So, there were all sorts of different things going on throughout 2021 along those lines.
Mike, I think the best thing to do is kind of use your own judgment, and what you can do. And I know for SONA, this is very important on the fitness because they want to really gauge that activity in the fitness. So you can actually put it one or both places. You can put it under sport for fitness, and you can either put it under, if there was no competition, you can put it under the training side of fitness because fitness is a sport. Or you can put it under the program info under 12 and 13 if it was unified.
Great, thank you.
Or just make sure you put the more notes you can put in the system, the better, as that will be the historical hub for what your program has done year over year. And it makes it a little bit easier when we go to do kind of a data verification, or someone else has a question about a particular metric. If there's a note in there that this was a 6-week training course or whatever the case is, it's always a little bit easier to see if there's a note in there.
Hi, this is Louise from Special Olympics Delaware. I have a question about the certified and uncertified coaches. We have had a lot of volunteers this year helping out at practice. Should we be counting them in that uncertified coach, or should we just be putting them under our volunteer count?
Both. And that's probably not the answer you want to hear. But if you look at the definition of M3, the coach, it's really anybody that is helping with the training. And
Okay.
then the certified coaches should be a subset of that number.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Hi, this is Louise from Rhode Island. Picking up on the last question, we just had a general question about the new coaches certification that they've been working on that we're supposed to be implementing for 2022. As far as counting our certified coaches for 2021, we're not supposed to be going by that new certification, are we? Should we just go along and count our certified coaches as we have in the past, using the metrics from the past?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I would also encourage anybody, if you haven't logged on to the census, please log on, make sure your password is working. And if not, just you can contact Census Help at specialolympics.org or email me directly, rsilva@specialolympics.org, and I can reset your password for you. But please don't wait until February 14th to see if you can log in, because I will guarantee that I will probably have 30 or 40 requests for logins or password changes on the 14th.
Hey, Reuben, this is Susan Schaefer from Special Olympics, Missouri. Hey, we have some new staff members that's kind of, and I'm one of them, taking this over. So where did that information, like the login and stuff, go to, or who does that go to that we can figure out how to get that?
What I will do, Susan, is I will email you right after this call and let you know who is credentialed for Missouri.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Reuben. This is Melinda, also from Missouri. So we're in the CEO change. And so right now we have an interim CEO and we have one hired, but that won't be starting. So I'm the senior program director, and Schaefer, who just spoke, we've both been tasked with this. So if you have trouble getting an answer back, you might just reach out.
Okay, Melinda, what I will do definitely when I get off this call is I will double check. I will set you and Susan up as credentials to access both census and accreditation.
Perfect.
You can use the same password for both of those websites, but I will do that as soon as I get off this call.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I did put the census guidance and definitions, the link to it in the chat. And then I just put in the training video, which we had in Q4 of last year. But that census guidance and definitions document will be really helpful, especially your first year. There's also tutorial videos that are built in to that document. So if you're wondering how to fill out question or metric 9A, 9AI, it's actually a video for that particular metric. And then there's one for M1 through M9, I believe you did, Reuben.
Yes.
That's in there as well. So as you go through that, you can watch the video first and then do that, or set up maybe even just time with Reuben. He's so good and so patient. So maybe even just setting up time, especially your first year. And this will be a really good opportunity to pick Reuben's brain about what has happened historically with your numbers. So if you're negative whatever percentage or positive something crazy percent in one particular metric, Reuben will more than likely know why that is, of what's kind of happened in the past. So I would definitely lean on Reuben for help there.
And I was working with a program last week that has a new CEO and was really concerned about making sure the numbers were right. And if they showed a decline, would anybody penalize them for that? No. And please, if you see a decline or increase, that's where those comments really help us, because, oh, we'll see, oh, we did a data cleanup, that's why we're showing a decline, or we failed to report this in the past, now we're reporting it. What it does is it's going to save about 5 or 6 emails back and forth. If we question, well, why is this number such a huge increase or decrease? Because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Kelly, she's going to go to you, then she's going to come back to me, then I'm going to question it again. And so it just gets in a vicious circle. But if you put the comments there, we can see the comments and, oh, that's why, okay, we're good at that. So.
And we have changed the process a little bit this year for data verification. So in years past, you would submit your census, and then several months later, you would probably get an email from me saying, hey, talk to me a little bit about this particular metric. So now when you submit your census, I get an email right away that says, you know, Missouri has submitted their census, go in and review it. So we're going in and reviewing within 24 hours to kind of ask you if there are questions, what the questions are, because that data will be really fresh in your mind because you literally just hit send on the submission. So that is, I think, will be really helpful this year. But we have reviewed a couple, and there are a couple I was like, oh, I would have loved if there was a note, like there was an increase of 400%. What is that? Like, how do we figure out what that is so we can replicate it with other programs? So the notes are super helpful. And there's never any judgment if there's a negative. So if you have a negative whatever percentage and you say, hey, we just really cleaned up the data this year, like, you will get no pushback from us. We would far rather have negative percentage and really, really good data than a positive, and it would be like an inflated number or a guess.
A couple of things that we do see that could flag is if you say you have 1,200 athletes doing basketball, but no coaches. We're going to ask you, how are you doing that without any coaches? Or if you say you have 1,200 athletes and only 2 coaches. So the numbers just don't look right to us. So those are things that we're going to look at. And it's in the video, it's in the guidance. We have added a couple of additional checks on the system this year because of problems we've seen in the past years. If you put more unified coaches under M9 than you have coaches under M3, that's going to give you a flag. Or if you put more athletes under a unified sport, such as basketball, say you put for unified athletes 500, but under M1 or M2, you only have 400, that's a flag to us. So we've put some error checking in there. And that's why I say, if you get an error, you're looking at it for more than 10 minutes, please let me know. Because I can look at it, we can do a screen share and explain exactly why that error is occurring and the best way to fix it. Are there any other questions?
Or even any suggestions for making this progress or this process a little bit easier? Do you want more communication? I don't know if I could give less. Do you want more communication? Do you want more trainings throughout the year? Or is it okay just kind of towards the end of Q4 and then early Q1? We're definitely open to suggestions there as well. We're even just allowing like quiet time right now that's blocked off on your calendar for you to start working on the census. So if you are working on your census, I love that. So we'll definitely give you guys the whole hour with us. So if you're working on your census during this block of time and no one else can bother you right now, and want to just ask questions as you go, that totally works.
Have you guys ever thought, as Schaefer from Missouri again, have you ever thought about doing it quarterly, that people can do a better shot at some of the things as we go along? Has that ever been thought of, about doing it quarterly?
Yeah, we've talked about different formats to this, and I think what Reuben and I don't mean to speak for Reuben, would like to advocate for is that the census be open around the entire year. So if you're done with basketball in whatever month, you can go ahead and just put those basketball numbers in there. Or if you're done with soccer, whatever, you could just put those numbers in there. So you don't have to wait until the end of the year. We also kind of want to avoid all of the deadlines, right? We have enough deadlines in Special Olympics as it is. So just having one deadline for census is probably good instead of 4, but having that open throughout the year. And feel free to chime in and say, yes, we love that idea. We love to have more backing from our programs to kind of agree with that. It gives us a little bit more of a stronger talking point. Or if you say, no, Kelly, that sounds awful, I do not want to have this open all year, we could certainly talk about that too.
Well, Kelly, I think it'd be good to, just by updating and being able to look at it after a season, I would think that would be easier for a lot of people. Knowing that I've never quite done this yet, I've had to answer questions in the past, but I think it'd be good just to leave it open. Then people can, once we can put it on our calendars to go, oh, let's go to the census and put our numbers in. And that helps us put our coaches' numbers in too.
Right. Yeah, you could certainly do it however you see fit. You could do it every month. You could do it after each season, whatever works for you, but you can't do it if it's not open year round, right? So we'll certainly continue providing that feedback to our team, but I appreciate your thoughts there.
This year was historic, was the earliest that we've actually ever opened the census. And so just to kind of get a timeline, and it's one of the things that I really fight with our staff about, is the window is closed for any modifications for the 2022 census, because we want to tell the programs at the beginning of the quarter, by the very end of the first quarter, oh, these are any new metrics for the 2022 reporting period. And so we really want to do that. That's prevented us from opening the census in the past. So now we can work on doing that, and there would only be a small period that the census would be closed, and that would be when we're trying to do the final reports and when we have to do any updates to the system. So Susan, I appreciate your support on the year round, because that's one of my goals.
Well, I just think and it would help, maybe even if you had staff turnover that did it, would even make sense to just do it and leave it open and then do it. Because like right now, we're probably going to be behind the 8 ball and knowing what we have to do. So
yeah, and the other thing that a lot of people don't understand is you can go in and start on the census and do 1 or 2 sports entries right now, save it and come back tomorrow. You don't have to do it at one setting. You can answer 3 questions on the program info, come back the next day and do 3 more questions. So if you know the number of competitions you did, the number of unified competitions, you can go ahead and put those in at any time. And it does save a lot of time if you just do it, log in, make those changes, you're done with it.
Maybe the other question is, does any program take their census questions and then give sections out to their colleagues? Like, do you send it out to your Unified Champion Schools person and say, hey, you're responsible for letting me know what the answer is for 9A and 9AI. Hey, social media team, I need the answers for metric 11. Hey, sports team, I need the answers for metric M1 through M9. Hey, whoever. So does anyone do it that way, or do you have one, maybe two people kind of pulling that data? It would be interesting to see how everyone does it.
I
don't
do
think
that
there's
in
a
South Dakota.
right or wrong.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. I think you're just.
Yeah, this is Mel from South Dakota, and that's what I do is I pull the question specific to those groups, especially Unified Champion Schools and my coaches education people, and get them to fill out those numbers. And then they get it back to me, and I put it in. So
Does that seem to work for you?
yeah, it does. It's not as overwhelming when you have, you don't have to do it yourself, and those people are the ones working specifically with those numbers. So yeah, it works for us to do it that way.
We do it the same way because nobody has all the data. So the departments have to do their own.
And remind me, tell me what program you're with.
Sorry, this is Tano with Special Olympics Colorado.
Oh, great. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. So we do it the same way because most of our data is not in GMS.
Mhm. So you don't get to do the cool download and then upload into the census system?
No.
Are you manually entering all the data?
We manually enter the athlete application in the Class A's.
Oh, but for the census system, are you manually entering?
Yes, when everybody gives me their numbers, then I put them in.
I'm sure no one's ever late in getting you that information.
No, I'm still working on it.
That's fair. You have till the 14th.
I believe I already secretly asked for an extension.
Oh.
She did.
That's
Right,
fair.
Reuben? Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody knows that I did that, but I already.
And to be perfect, we don't mind giving out extensions, but please, if you know that you're not going to make the 14th, let us know now, because I will guarantee at 0001 on the 15th, you will not be able to access your census unless I extend it. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to sneak it in on Tuesday, that's not going to work. So it's at 0001 on your time zone that the census, you're locked out of it. And unfortunately, we have 5 regions with the same deadline. So I know that on Tuesday morning, I will be extending a lot of deadlines.
Well, and this one really does back up to Hill Day. Hill Day's next week. And then there's like kind of a quasi day to recover, and then census is due Monday. So it is a lot going on. So there's no judgment. If you need an extension, we can absolutely make sure that happens for you.
And I think a lot of times the programs don't understand is that once we get the data, what we do with it, there's a certain period that we go through and look at it, the cleansing side of it. And that's where we're really trying to do that proactively as soon as you submit doing that. But we're still looking at putting that numbers together, doing the reports so we can get the annual reports done and get information back to you of, hey, this is what your program looks like for 2021. And 2020, 2021, the numbers are so important because of COVID, because COVID had a huge impact on us. And those are things that we're reporting to, especially the donors and things like that, because they can really get behind what those impacts are. So we want to make sure that we've had a chance to look at the numbers and we could verify them, and then we can put those numbers into the reach report and get that information published. So we could have a good picture of what Special Olympics looks like as far as numbers.
And additionally, your insurance carrier wants to know that information. Is anyone working on their census right now?
Yes, I'm looking at mine right now.
Oh, I love that. I'm also not afraid of like quiet. So if you guys want a little quiet space to work on it, that's totally fine. You can just unmute and ask questions as you go. Reuben, I don't know about you, but it's nice to like not have anyone bother for an hour.
Well, when I was talking to you earlier today, I had 3 phone calls and they were from the same person.
Oh, no.
And it was kind of an emergency. They were locked out of GMS,
Oh, that's a problem.
but it wasn't us, it was them.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Locked out of GMS. Melinda, what program are you with? I don't think wait, no, Melinda, you're from Missouri.
Missouri.
Yeah.
See, I remember that.
Yeah, right? You literally just told me. I had a. Oh, okay. Um,
Reuben, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So I noticed this year that you broke out the young athletes with the 2 to 5 and the 6 to 7.
They should still.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the spreadsheet right now. And so on the young athletes, you have it where the 2 to 5 and then right next to it 6 to 7, which I think is the 6 to 7 is a new column. One of the things I don't know if none of our young athlete data is in GMS. So I have a little bit of a concern that we might be double counting some of the young athletes that do come to our competitions and what's also being tracked by the young athletes director. Because I'm looking at her numbers and she filled in a lot of the young athletes. We have some that, are unified juniors. She takes care of all that. So we might have we don't have individual counts, so they'll probably be counted more than once.
Yes, and I would just put them under the YA column just to be consistent. And what really sends the flag to us is if you have a grant for the young athletes and you're underreporting the young athletes.
I think we're fine with the young athletes. My concern is what we have in GMS. I won't be able to break out, like say if, young athletes showed up for like winter games and they got entered in and they're like on the cusp of being 8 years old. She's going to count them in her young athletes numbers. And then it's also going to pull into the GMS.
Yeah, that's really not going to be too much of an issue because it's not going to be that large of a number.
Okay, perfect.
It's going to be, and there again, that's one of those things is don't stress over those type of numbers because that number is a really small percentage. Is what we look at is if we see a good example on that same subject is if you reported last year 1,000 young athletes and then all of a sudden this year you have 3,000, we're going to ask you, what did you do?
Okay.
And if you say, oh, we had a big push in it, then that's fine. But we don't get down to the granular level that much.
Yeah, because we're showing, like, for example, on alpine skiing, I'm showing like, oh no, that's not a good example. Like on our athletics, we're showing 69 between between 8 and 15. And then she put in that she has 33. Oh, they already added the UCS numbers. So it's getting confusing, like 33, 6 to 7-year-olds. I have a feeling that those might be duplicated in some ways, that those young athletes came to a track and field event.
Yes, and we realize that, but we figured
Okay.
that it's a low percentage, so it's nothing to get
Okay,
too alarmed about.
perfect.
Also,
And
I want to alpine ski with young athletes. That sounds fun.
you'll run over them.
I'll be on my butt on the side of the hill.
I've been
What is-
doing the learn to ski for the past 3 years. It's a load of fun.
Is it learn to ski with our athletes?
Yeah, the littles.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Reuben, road trip it. We gotta go. Oh my gosh, how cute is that? Do you have
And
pictures on
some
your
of them
website?
have been doing it long enough that we'll probably take them up on the ski chairs this year instead of just the magic carpet.
How fun.
Yeah.
But
Is that a unified thing?
Yes, it's with our young athletes program. Mhm.
and you're in the place to do it because Colorado does so much with the youth skiing.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. I love that you guys all have like some really niche things that you do. Like, I think sailing is always really fun, but young athletes learning how to ski is very like on brand for Colorado. Just how fun.
And Melinda and Susan, I just looked in, neither one of you are in the census or accreditation, so I'll get you added and send you your passwords here as soon as we're finished with the call.
Is Susan in there?
Nope, neither one of them are.
Okay. I should not.
Thanks, Reuben.
And Susan, I'd love to get your feedback after like year one of doing the census on what you think or how the process could be easier other than having it open year round.
I bet you me and Melinda can do that for you because we're
I
going to
love
be
that.
teaming this job.
Yes, I love that. It should not fall on the shoulders of one person. It's too big, but always interested in hearing feedback from people because you want to make the process better every year, but also easier every year.
Right. We use GMS a lot compared, I think, to maybe some other states. So I think it will be easy to go back in and track our numbers. The only things that we'll probably have to go back is like our virtual stuff and do all that. And that was maintained by one person. So hopefully we'll be able to do that too.
Well, and if you do use GMS a lot, in the training, Reuben talks about how to download from GMS and then upload it right into the census system. So hopefully you can utilize that and it will take you not a lot of time.
Yes. So we're going to do a lot of research on that, that training. So.
And Susan, if you need to jump on a call when you're doing that, let me know and we can arrange it. I think I've done right now 4 states on actually doing the exports for them, but it's a simple process.
Okay. All right. We use a lot of that bridge, so.
Yeah, watch the video, yes, but also maybe just reach out to Reuben and he can show you how to do it really quickly.
Well, it'd have been a good day to have it because we are going to be snowed in the next 2 days.
We're getting that too.
You
It's
guys
supposed
you guys can keep it.
Ruben, we're having Nebraska snow today.
Yeah, I
No.
actually I talked to Raider from Kansas earlier today, and they were expecting about 5 inches.
We're supposed to get up to 7 to 12.
Okay.
Yeah, we're supposed to get 12.
Yeah, that's going just north of us. So you guys can have it. It's going to be 50 degrees here this afternoon and tomorrow.
Life's tough.
Wow.
Ruben, I have another question for you.
Yes.
So I'm looking at last year's and this year's with our volunteer numbers, and there is a drastic decrease. And I'm thinking it's because we in the past, we used to count just if somebody had an active class A. And I think now we're trying to count more of if they actually do something with our program. And
Novel
not just-
idea.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So is that if I put that in the notes, will that make enough sense to you that
Yes.
we're counting actual
Yes, if you
participation?
just put in a note there, and there's 2 places that you can put the note. You can put it
Okay.
when you do your data verification. You can just go to that metric and put a note there, or on the main screen over on the right side, there's just a note section. If you just put a general note there, that's fine. And you could put multiple notes there. But
Yeah, I just want to make sure I put something that makes sense for that, because it is a significant decrease. And I don't think I think more our COVID numbers are showing up this year than they did last year as far as our loss of coaches. But I think also this is probably has to do more with how we're counting our volunteers.
yes, and we've actually seen that in a number of programs where we've gone in and actually cleaned up their data and showed programs, hey, this is how you get an accurate count. One of the things, I was working with one program, they had over 16,000 athletes that haven't done anything in 4 years. The record hasn't changed. And they were still active. So it's just an education process. And the more information we get like that really helps us target and say, these are things programs should be looking at. Just because you have 16,000 active volunteers doesn't mean you have 16,000 volunteers. What have they done in the past year? Or even if you go 18 months, but if you say, what have they done in the past year, then it gives a much better count and a better snapshot of what the program's doing.
So back to the volunteer, this is Mel from South Dakota. And is there, and you probably have already mentioned this, when you talked about the total number of volunteers, you do include all your coach, obviously your certified coaches and everything. I heard you say that earlier, that that's a sub number, the certified coaches. But Reuben, can you go into GMS and do a report? This is, I'm sure you probably already did this, do a report that just pulls all of your coaches and chaperones from that year and all those events in that year?
Yes, there's a couple of ways of doing that. For the coaches is if you put in the coaches, assign them to a games, it's going to pull out when you do the census export, but you can also do a summary crosstab report of look at records that changed during that year for a certain group and get the numbers that way. And that's definitely something, Mel, if you want to do offline, we can set up a quick call and I can show you how to do some of those reports.
Yeah, because I don't know why I'm not getting, oh, I guess I am, but the numbers are so low. I know it's just because it's COVID.
Yeah, and that may not, because some programs don't register all their coaches in the games.
Yeah.
And I actually ran a report this morning for Kentucky of looking at all of their coaches that are not expired on their certifications. And that's a pretty simple report to run.
Okay. All right, well, it's probably, yeah, it's just a very underwhelming number, which when I look at this report, so. All right,
Well, we always say too, that really gives your development staff and your volunteer management staff good talking points in more cases of support for your program. I mean, that's really good talking points for your development person. You know, the need to support your particular program is greater now more than ever. Look at the drop in numbers we have. You can do 2019 to 2021. Like, we need your support now more than ever. So sometimes you see those numbers and they kind of look underwhelming. That also paints an important narrative about what's happening within your program. And I don't just say that because I'm a former development person.
Reuben, I have another question for you. So we still have a significant number of unknown date of births and unknown genders. But when you use the census report in GMS, it just leaves those out. It doesn't show the system missing. Do you just want that in a note again somewhere? Uh-oh, we lost Reuben. I
He did
ask
not
him a
like that
question and he
question.
leaves.
You probably
Well,
got
go figure, Kelly.
Right. So you have unknown
Yeah,
gender?
we have unknown, like, so like we just like they got entered in the database, but nobody knew anything but their name. And then they got entered into games. So they're showing up, or they should show up, say like, you know, in basketball, they played on a team, but we have no information about that athlete. They should show up on the basketball line, but because there's no, you know, the age, it's by ages and then by gender. If those are missing, then obviously it's not going to know where to put them in there when you run the GMS census report. So we still have, I don't know how prevalent of a problem it was last year. I think it was a lot larger than this year. Let me see what I did last year. If Reuben comes back.
Yeah, I'm almost hesitant, like I'm teetering on, do you put them in other for gender?
Well, there is no other, oh, maybe that's what we did. Wait, let me see. So last year we
Historically,
had
they would just all be listed as males, which obviously.
Yeah, last year we had 14 athletes with no date of birth and gender. So not too bad, not as bad as years past. And then for coaches, we pulled out of, we didn't use GMS for coaches last year.
Yeah, you could put
It
them
might not be
under
as bad.
other and then just put the note in there. Like, these weren't people that identified their gender as other. We just didn't have a gender for them.
Well, I don't have an age group to put them with either. So I would like, it's either 8 to 15, 16 to 21, or 22 plus.
And how many do you think there are?
Well, last year we had 14.
Okay.
I'm hoping this year it might not be as bad. I saw, just as going in and cleaning up the data, I did see actually more unified partners and coaches, but those are not broken down by ages.
Right.
So I think we're okay there. Coaches, I may not know the gender. I guess I could put those in as other.
Yeah.
But I think last year I just made a note for them somewhere.
That works.
I don't remember where.
It's probably in there. I can go in and try to find it.
But I just wanted to know if that was still okay with Reuben, just to put them in a note.
Yeah, if you just put it in the note.
Okay.
I think that works. I'll go into your census last year to see.
It's not that many anymore. It used to be a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is it because people aren't filling it out? Like what do you think that is?
I think it's that we just don't get the paperwork for them.
Mm,
And then they're allowed to participate. And then we, of course, once they participate, they're not gonna fill out anything. So
right. Do you see that for one group over another? Is that like young athletes versus,
well, our young athletes, we tend to do it because that's run by one person.
yeah,
It tends to be a lot better than
Yeah.
the others are. There's 4 regional managers. So, it kind of depends on the regional manager, I think,
yeah,
or how, and the coach, of course. I think we have some coaches that struggle more than others
yeah.
to get the paperwork done.
That's
I think
fair.
it's better though. I think the first time I told Reuben about that problem, we were talking about hundreds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So seeing that there was only 14 last year, but then last year was also COVID.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with 2021. Yeah.
Oh, you're really good about putting notes. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Engagement opportunities.
So the class A's probably won't have that many notes anymore because I think they're just going to count those who participated. Last year, I think they were struggling because our numbers used to be so high.
Mhm.
And then like probably double what we reported. And then, so it was trying to figure out how to show why it was much lower. And this year it'll be lower again. But I think it's because we're trying to get to actual participation.
Yeah, it does look like athletes with no date of birth or gender was 14 last year per your note.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the census year by year as a synopsis of what happened in that year, you would put not the total number that are literally sitting in GMS, but the number that you were actually engaged.
Yeah.
Hey, Reuben.
I'm back. My computer crashed.
No.
Oh, lovely.
The
We were
second
wondering
time.
if it was just my question.
Yeah, that's exactly what we said.
Well,
You didn't
yeah,
answer
but
question.
I hit the Colorado button.
Yeah, it's because Reuben's tired of hearing from me, Reuben. You're like, oh my God, it's her again.
No. This is the second time my computer went to the blue screen of death
Oh,
today.
Second
yikes.
time today.
Yeah. So
That's not good.
Reuben, I think we just figured out that I just made a note of it in the last year's, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
okay.
Well, I think I remember the first time I told you it was like we had over hundreds of athletes. We didn't know that information. And last year it looks like it was only 14, but then I just told Kelly it was a COVID year. So who knows what 2021 will look like. Because obviously we weren't running that many competitions.
Yeah, and who would figure that we would be in COVID for 2 years?
Yeah.
So.
But we did run some competitions this last year. So we'll see how well we did with the paperwork this last year. But that is a huge issue that we have here at SOCO is getting the athlete application and class A's turned in prior to.
And it's not only you, it's a lot of programs.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And obviously once they are allowed to participate, I mean, even if we try to call them up and say, hey, you have an incomplete or you didn't fill it out, I mean, they just delete our voicemail messages. We get like no response after the fact. So very rare.
Until you show up to practice with their like incomplete form and you're like,
yeah. And it's too hard to manage. I mean, I think last year we had 79 incomplete applications, and it's just impossible for people to follow up and get them completed.
But if it was an online system.
It is online.
It is online. It's still completely incomplete.
Yeah, they like upload the wrong exam forms or
Oh.
they don't submit it. So it doesn't have the signatures, stuff like that always happens. Or they start it, but they don't complete it.
Mm.
Yeah, that's to be perfectly truthful, it's not only you. There's a lot of programs that have that same issue, and everyone thinks, oh, we'll do an online, and it's going to solve all of our problems. And it doesn't, because sometimes it creates more problems to chase. It's harder to chase incomplete information down than it is to chase no information.
Yeah, well, it has improved, but when you came out, Reuben, remember we had about 40% of our applications were incomplete when
Yes.
we were doing the paper application. So we've gone from like 40% to like this last year, we probably received over 1,000 applications and we only had 79 incomplete. And some of those were carried over from 2020. So it has improved a lot. Compared to the paper application, because that was even worse.
Yeah.
Because people would just like turn in the front page of the paper application, and that would be like all that we got, you know.
Or
Or
you
they
get the application, you can't read it.
Yeah. So major improvements there, because 40% was impossible. You know, if you get 100 applications in a week and 40 of them are incomplete, I mean, your data entry is like stuck. There's just nothing you can do at that point. So we do like the online application, but it does come with some other problems. But I would say it is a marketable improvement to the past. But I think just in general, we struggle with getting the paperwork done, and the Class A, we struggle with that, and that's even easier. So
Look, like I said, you're not alone. I think every program has those same issues and same
Yeah.
challenges, and
yeah,
someday we might get it right, but I don't know when.
yeah. So,
But if you figure it out, you let us know.
well, the online helps. I do recommend that.
Yeah.
It's helped a lot. We have other issues with, people not liking the fact that it's online, but I think it's gone pretty well. We've gone completely paperless
Good.
with our athlete application. Last year, we only received 4 that were in paper that we had to reject. So I think it's, out of 1,000 applications, to only have 4. Well, actually, we had 6, but we got 2 people to redo it online. Is pretty good.
That's good. And I think, if you have on your online the must fill blocks, it makes it much easier, and it improves the quality of the data coming in also.
Yeah. So,
especially the contact information, because that seems to be the challenge,
yes.
and you've seen it, we've talked
Yeah.
about it, the number of athletes you get that's registered without a date of birth.
And I'm waiting for your address fix in GMS, because that's the only thing that's preventing us from doing the importation.
Yep. We're working on that. So
Yeah, because I remember I went over that address field with you.
yes.
So that's the problem that we have
Well,
with the importation, is that the addresses are all funky.
Yes, I could spend the next week talking to you about addresses in GMS. Because it's been, I think we've got to the root of the problem now. Now we just need to go in and apply a good fix to it. So it's at least now we can get the information out and making sure that we get it out.
So Kelly, we collect 3 different addresses. We allow people to have 3 different addresses. So we weren't able to import those 3 different types of addresses into GMS consistently or accurately. So we had to import. Reuben was out here. When were you out here, Reuben? In 2019, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 2019. Yes.
Yeah, and we just it wouldn't work, so we didn't. We had other things to work on, so we didn't do the importation after.
Yeah, and that's my next step, is to see if our new export now we can import, because we've identified those addresses where it's much cleaner. And to be perfectly honest, in the past, what we found out, our developer now found out that the addresses weren't properly tagged in the database.
Yeah.
So it was a random, oh, you want the home address? Well, you might get it if it's the first address on the tab. But
Yes.
now they're pretty clearly tagged, and